Welcome to the Find Your Voice, Change Your Life podcast with psychologist Dr. Doreen Downing. Listen in as Doreen interviews people who felt they didn't have a voice or who suffered extreme speaking anxiety. You'll hear stories about how they struggled to speak up, what they did to find their authentic voice, and the confidence they now feel to speak up and make an impact. If you want to get started right away to find your voice, download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com. And now, here is Doreen.
Hi, this is Dr. Doreen Downing, host of the Find Your Voice, Change Your Life podcast. And I am very, very happy today to introduce you to somebody that I'm just meeting myself, Natalia Price. We had a few minutes beforehand, and I could already tell that her healing powers are amazing. Today is kind of a hard day. It's election time in the United States and the aftermath of an election moment. And she's already sent some wonderful energy just by being together. So I'm sure those of you who are listening today, whether you're watching or you're listening on the platform, whatever platform you use, will feel a new sense of possibility, I guess is the word I'll put for right now. I think any moment in time is the beginning of the next moment, right? But today has a powerful moment that really needs to move forward. So hello, Natalia. I will read your bio in a moment, but I just wanted to have your glorious face in front of me.
Such a joy to be here with you, Doreen.
Good. Let's see. Let me get your bio popped up here. It's a little long, but I want to read it because it does feel like it represents who you are nowadays. Natalia Price is a woman's spiritual empowerment mentor, ordained priestess, and facilitator of the 13 Moon Mystery School. And she facilitates transformation through one-on-one mentorship, the year-long Priestess Initiate Circle, embodied ritual leadership program, and community moon circles. Natalia supports women unlocking their potential and honing their skills to lead with authenticity and purpose, merging archetypical. I know that's not quite how we say it. I am a psychologist, so I should be able to say that. But merging archetypal psychology, women's empowerment, and spiritual leadership to enable women in finding their authentic voice, trusting their intuitive wisdom, and offering their gifts in the world with clarity and confidence. She's passionate about the feminine rising movement, being a force for rebalancing our planet and creating real change to seed a new world. Do I need to even go further? That's just, I mean, hello, folks. This is, I just read who she is. Now let's get to interact with Natalia so you get the real live person with me today. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yay, blessed be. Thank you.
How was that listening to such marvelous acknowledgments of you?
It inspires me to really walk that talk.
Oh, already I got little chills on my body. I just am so already falling into this wonderful orb that you've created here today. And your backdrop is kind of an orb, isn't it? So what I like to do, the podcast is usually divided into first finding out some of the history, because obviously you were born the being that you are, but we are born in circumstances that begin to challenge and shape us early on so that when we grow up and if we process it and heal from it, we become stronger, stronger, stronger. So let's start with anything you have to say about your early life, coming into it and finding your voice, not having a voice, that kind of inquiry to start with.
You know, when as a child growing up in South America, we moved around a lot. And I felt like it was all about us, well, for myself, about just being the good girl and just following what was needed, going along with the program. And I had two older brothers that really bullied me a lot.
Oh.
But definitely in the relationship with my mother and father, it wasn't modeled to me about women speaking up or women having confrontation or going against the grain. So I unconsciously took on a lot of that people pleasing or pretending to be happy a lot. It really wasn't until we moved to the States when I was about 10, 11 that I could see the bigger ways this was playing out and seeing this whole women's empowerment movement, seeing the ways that it really rubbed up and challenged me on many levels.
And that was at age 10, you already started to.
Yeah, because I really saw the difference in living in South America and in the States. Then I started to see how I was playing out the old story that here was a different kind of way that women could show up, but I just didn't know how to.
Mm-hmm.
As I got older, and especially in college, I would see other women that would speak up and be very eloquent and women leaders. And I would just be in awe and be like, how can they do that? Where do they get that confidence from? Not only that presence that when they would hold in a room, and I would just be in complete, like, what is this thing? How do you get this thing?
I love what you just did right there. You're For those who are listening and not able to watch, Natalia just did this gesture with her hand that came down in front of her body, and it looked like kind of a sense of grounded beingness, although it was your hand bringing energy down. In your expression, I already feel a lot of excitement about what you were learning early on. But before we go too far into what you were excited about, I want to go back just to touch on some of the struggle. I know that you mentioned it, but I think a lot of listeners do grow up in families with brothers who might be bullying, and parents or a mom that doesn't really model the kind of strength we as young girls need. Do you have any stories, any early moment life when you were still back in South America?
When I look back now and I see the moments that I was invited to step up at school to
Mhm.
speak in front of others, the level of fear that would grip me that I didn't quite understand, and later as I got older, I kind of went back and would go underneath and do a deeper psychoanalysis of my own shadow work and what was there. But this deeper fear of being humiliated and deep fear of being judged, that now I can look back and see that it really started in my family, or there was, some aspect of whenever I would speak up that I would get silenced and shut down in a way that then I would just make myself more palpable, or thinking, oh, that if I'm just really nice and sweet, everything will be okay, that I
Mhm.
won't get hurt. Then even deeper, because later in my life, I became a performer in dance
Mhm.
and doing ritual theater, but it wasn't in using my voice. Then when it would come time to speak, whenever I was asked or invited to, I would get so nervous. I would almost be shaking, and I would feel like the blood would just rush up and down my body. I would just completely go blank.
Uh-huh.
It would be so debilitating. And I would really be like, what's going on here? Is it really just from, being bullied as a child or my childhood things? And doing, deeper shadow work and going within myself, I actually was able to take it back into past lives where I had been completely silenced and forced to not speak my truth in the times of the witch burning times, that it wasn't me that was actually killed, but I realized that to survive and to keep living, I had to stay quiet and do what was needed and not, speak my truth, my power, or the wisdom that I held.
Mhm. Yeah, it's I'm pretty speechless right now, just amazed that you were able to go so deep and so far within your own journey to be here, on this planet, and discover that it's just always, it's been there for a long, long time. You just didn't pop into this world. Your voice was already strangled when you came into this world. That's what you're telling me. And so you're in this environment and you're not getting good feedback, mirroring back and saying, yay, you're so strong, you're so wonderful, stand up and express yourself. And then the brothers who are teasing, bullying, I mean, were they physical with you?
Yes, also.
Like
And so in a way,
pushing?
yeah, pushing, and then a lot of just like shaming or being put down
Uh-huh,
that just felt so disempowering, right?
uh-huh,
Realizing, oh, if I just stay quiet, everything is so much easier and better. If I just smile, or, especially
uh-huh.
being praised for the feminine qualities of smiling or the beauty way, or if when I'm in service, this is where I can find my worthiness,
Uh-huh.
which I feel as women, this has been so deeply ingrained in us.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel a lot of the feminine that we've taken on this aspect from, what history has shown us that women were silenced, like this whole time of the witch burning times that went on for over 300 years that we have of recorded history in Western Europe. We don't
Yeah,
even know what was before that, where
yeah.
the feminine was really erased
Uh-huh.
and where women were pitted against each other or betraying one another, to stay alive. And
Uh-huh.
that any women that knew anything about, herbs, plants, that owned property, that knew about the planets were, systematically taken out. For the women that did survive, this goes into us and gets passed on. And even now that we know the study of epigenetics, that it's in our DNA, that it's in our
Mm.
genes,
Yeah.
this fear of speaking forward.
Oh, it's
For
deep.
so many women, right? We are all right
Yeah.
here. We're cut off in our throat. This
Uh-huh.
great fear to stay alive, right? It served its purpose to assist us, that playing small allowed us to stay alive.
Yes, and that I'm pretty excited now and thinking of, yeah, stay alive. That there was a point. I mean, we could go back and say, oh, there was something that stopped us from being ourselves, but maybe the stopping is part of the healing and the finding more. Also, what I'm getting from you is that there's both the personal that you're talking about, but also something that relates to the whole community and the history. Both is what I'm getting from you today. And I feel like there's layers. There's, Natalia layer, just meeting you and what you know and what you're bringing, but then you're moving into further back, deeper into not just your own story, your own life, but it feels like you're opening up for our listeners today this big breath of, oh my goodness, no wonder that's so scary to express yourself. And we aren't talking about a microphone and a stage necessarily, it's speaking up to people who are bullying us.
And in so many ways, also not to just get caught up in our own story or our own trauma or the poor me, or that I need to go in and do all this work on myself, that it's in our lineages, that all women, whether it was done specifically to us in our
Yes.
own personal stories, but as the feminine on the planet.
Uh-huh.
And so much of the rising of the feminine, this whole movement is about us clearing all those greater blockages.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. I think that's what I'm picking up already today is that your voice is not just about, hey, look at me. It's about, hey, we've all been through something together, whether we know it or not.
And how do we now come together and lift each other up and support each other through this clearing, through this empowerment, through this awakening that's happening for women
Uh-huh.
on the planet? And I feel,
Awakening, clearing, empowering. Aren't those wonderful words? Awakening, clearing, empowering. But go on. Yes. In fact, it feels like moving into your own moment where you started to do the aha. I know it was coming to the United States, but also it seems like you were in a new kind of environment. What were some of the waking up that you did?
I feel that the deeper initiation was really when I met my mentor, my teacher, and dove into the 13 Moon Mystery School and doing this deeper women's empowerment work of getting to see myself working with divine feminine archetypes. And that's the work of the 13 Moon Mystery School, where we may be able to see ourselves from these different faces of what it really means to be a woman at this time and what we're being called forward to. And a lot of that is working with this archetypal psychology of the shadow work, of looking at what are my blocks. And not necessarily that I have to see exactly where they came from some trauma or something that happened in childhood, but where am I at now to alchemize, to transmute that, and
Yes.
to use those blocks to empower us and lift us up.
Oh, well, I'm thinking about a process, as a psychologist that is the taking, to me, it feels like I can take people back to moments, but what I'm taking people back to or with is not, it's more of what's possible now, the openness, the curiosity, the power of who we are now goes back to those moments, and brings an energy that then transforms that original pain. That's kind of how I see healing, that we don't just go back, because it's called repetition for a reason. We don't ignore it. I do think that this shadow work that you're talking about is really necessary to know ourselves. And yeah, it doesn't have to come back to big brother bullying, but it is even deeper, as you've been telling us. It's about histories, eons, centuries.
But it's so important to just, one, recognize it and be with what's there, right? Be with that pain, be with the discomfort.
Yes.
And see, what was its medicine?
Oh, I like that. What was
What
its
did I
medicine?
learn from this? How did it
Yes.
serve me?
Can I have you show up on my sessions? That's exactly, the whole point is, well, how did it serve you? And it says, people would say, no, it didn't. It was just a horrible experience. But that kind of awe that I just saw in your face about, ooh, there's something in it.
I feel for so many of us when we're doing that work that we realize our traumas and our shadows, what appeared to hold us back, then actually end up being the thing that catalyzes us forward, that empowers us. And so, for me, finding that I was so blocked in my throat and in my speaking, and from doing this deeper work and the deeper shadow work, and then showing up and being invited to speak and meeting that fear over and over, that I was able to see, actually, this is where my power is. Actually, in speaking, that's why I could see it in all these other women, because it was the thing that I had, that I am. Once I was able to really alchemize that and lift it up, and then really bring it together with this whole movement of the rising of the feminine and my desire to empower more women to be able to rise up and find their truth and power sooner than it took me to finally step into this in my 40s. That's what also catalyzes and pushes me forward to keep stepping through my fears over and over.
I like a couple of words you're using, definitely the alchemy of what it takes to transform something. I've been hearing that in your message today. But you take me to a point about if you can just be with the pain. And I did a process on having my father, who was alcoholic, be in a scene in the family where everybody's laughing. It's kind of a party. But I know I'm hearing something else, Natalia. I do not feel it's gay and joyful. And sure enough, that was the night he left the family. I didn't see him for many, many, many years. But this question that you ask is like, well, so you got a friend there, huh? Somebody who wants to be seen also on camera here. But but what that brought to me was my power of listening. What I bring into the work that I've done and chosen is a deep, deep kind of listener. So that being curious about, well, so what did that give you? And so alchemy, let's go into what is alchemy, and how does anybody do that?
Well, what I'm really speaking to is
Or
that,
is it a doing, actually? Is it a doing?
Right. There you go. And it's that spiritual alchemy that so much of that whole era that they were speaking to, that we think it was about changing, base metals into gold, but it was that doing that internal work so that we can rise up and
Yeah.
lift our consciousness and come out of any of those limiting belief systems or old stories or those patterns that keep the trauma that keeps playing out for ourselves. And how do we really find it through that path of self-love, of
Oh.
self-acceptance, that
Uh-huh.
yes, these pieces live in me, or this was done to me, and yet now as an adult I could make another choice.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
What
It's
did I
not
want?
denying. It's not denying. It's the opposite of accepting, is the word you just used. And nevertheless, she persisted.
Yeah, right, over and over, and you meet that fear and you meet that trembling, and like, no, what I have to offer here, or what I'm here to do, or my purpose is bigger than the fear.
Uh-huh. Lovely. Well, we're moving into more of what you're doing nowadays, but let me first take a break and we'll be right back.
If you want to get started right away to find your voice, download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com.
Hi, we're back with Natalia Price, who's captivating me with not only alchemy and what that actually means in terms of changing our sense of self, and that sometimes we get locked into an identity that is based on what somebody else laid on us or the environment that we arrived in. And Natalia talked about being born in South America and then finally coming to the United States and having an awakening, you might say. And that's one of the things that we're talking about today, is how do we awaken to the more? So we're back. Hi. So awakening to the more, Natalia, whatever you want to say about that.
I feel right now, in the midst of so much challenge that's happening in the world, it's really about us doing the inner work, coming inside, stilling the mind, and feeling like, what is within me? And especially as women, right? Getting in touch with what is this sacred feminine, that we are all being called at this time to step forward in a new way that serves us so far beyond of any of the old models of what it was to come forward in leadership, right? That we're ushering this new consciousness, this new blueprint of what it is to be human,
Uh-huh.
in the light of all the drama and the separation and the polarity that's happening us. And I feel that so many of us carry the medicine of the sacred feminine in her many ways. And we are carrying these new seeds forwards in our businesses, in our offerings, in our relationship, and especially in our leadership. I believe it's really the women that it's our time to step up to rebalance our world. That we see what the patriarchy has done to our planet, to our world, to our education, to our medical system. And it's about women empowering themselves by really finding out who they are and being called to their sacred purpose unapologetically.
Mhm.
Right? We are.
Sacred purpose. That phrase, sacred purpose. I hope that resonates with all the listeners out there right now. Just coming back to your own sense of, I know that Natalia does this with her hand. She starts at the top and brings her hands down in front of her body, and that again signals to me, oh, just come back to yourself, get centered. And that gesture helps remind me that, oh, take a breath, come back. I'm here now. And I love also a lot of the encouragement you're giving to women being powerful. You're calling sacred feminine, which gives it a little more juice than just, wake up as women. We're waking up as sacred feminine.
And this is an aspect that the men have within themselves that has been so repressed for so long, this aspect of the sacred feminine that lives within all of us. And in the midst of what's happening, we're in this new process. I believe it's like a transmutation. And
Uh-huh.
there's energetic return of the sacred feminine consciousness on our planet. And it's moving us into this huge new planetary cycle. that is really calling each one of us, male or female, to harness and sharpen our visions, our imaginations, and to conspire and craft a new way of how we move in the world and how we run everything, right? The businesses. And I feel it's that deeper soul, heart-centered part of all of us that's being called forward right now to reclaim our humanity and our freedom when we really come together and releasing whatever the labels, the narratives that keep us polarized or fragmented.
Yes.
I feel that success for our planet and for our world, and even in the light of this election, is being of service to the earth and in being in right relationship to this web of life.
Mhm.
Right. And tending to our own inner hearts and what's real for each one of us.
Uh-huh.
And it's by doing that inner work of coming within, of slowing it down.
Ooh, you just did it right there. Slowing it down. You just did it instantly. And this heart that I think that when you do this gesture of coming down, it's also brings me to my heart. And that's just what you were talking about, the heartfulness of, and where we can really energetically, truly have more of a connection. I know that right now I feel connected because I'm listening to you, I'm being with you, but this deeper kind of awe of, ooh, like taking this breath of heart. Oh, yes, you and I are connected through this energy of heart.
The 13 Moon Mystery School that I'm a part of, we work with somatic and embodiment movements to really drop out of our mind and down into our heart.
There you did it.
And so this is the main mudra that we do, that we just bring that hand down and we call ourselves down and in to come into the heart, to rebalance ourselves, right? So that we don't, and even when I find myself getting excited, that I start speeding up. And so that we can become the witness, so that we can actually respond instead of reacting in our world.
Yeah, well, then I certainly picked up on that because it came across clearly, metaphorically, as well as quite literally. I'd like to, we're getting close to the end, so I want to make sure and talk about any upcoming event you have or something that you're going to share today with us, a freebie or something about how people can find you. We want more of you. So how do we do that?
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Well, I have a freebie that is inviting people in doing ritual and ceremony on their own and taking them through a step-by-step process for whatever they want to manifest into their life. I have that with you somewhere and sent you that link.
Okay,
And
we'll
then I'm
put it.
also starting right now the Embodied Ritual Leadership Program. And it's an 8-week program that is really empowering women to step into dynamic feminine leadership and an embodied facilitation, and really offering them the tools and the foundations to confidently guide their own ceremonies or circles or one-on-one with their clients, to drop into the heart and to really learn that art of ritual facilitation and the inner work that it takes to clear out the blockages, the imposter syndrome, the perfectionism, and step into authentic leadership.
Yeah, and I really understand that authentic leadership is just a step away if you've done the other steps prior to it. You just don't go from here to there. There's a beautiful awakening, the word that you used earlier, and a opening but it's also a moving and I love this idea of embodiment that you're speaking about, is that it doesn't happen up here.
Yeah.
Our change or our awareness, we might get more insight, but it's actually, how do we embody? I'm just kind of doing it right now with my opening my chest, right? How do we embody it and open our arms up and to life, and life we get to create. You said craft and create earlier, and I'm taking that also today.
I feel like it's weaving this heart and mind so that then we can step forward and take action from this very compassionate, centered place.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and that reclamation of who we are in all aspects of ourselves, right? To come back to that feminine compass of our intuition and our heart knowing, that
Mm.
it doesn't need to be all this mental story.
Yeah. Heart knowing. Well, I feel like this is just the beginning of getting to know you, and people are going to be searching you out and joining your rituals. And I look forward to having people do, and I look forward to it myself, is downloading because I could do it by myself, but it opens me up to other people too. It feels like that it's not just me sitting in my own little box here doing it. It just kind of it feels like it connects me to other women. And the more I come into my own feminine energy, sacred energy, it feels like there's a resonance, I guess is the word I'm thinking, that then, feels like it reaches other people too, like what you've done today. You're resonating here, something about reaching us more deeply. Well,
Yeah.
we're gonna close, but I want to take a easy, gentle breath and open up to listening to what might want to be said before we leave our time together.
Mm. I feel like this process of finding our voice and being able to step forward, with confidence, with clarity, there's so much of that deeper diving within so that we can discover whatever our own medicine and our gifts are, and then how to embody that to whatever our, unique expression is of ritual, of ceremony, of the sacred. But it really takes that coming home within and getting in touch with each one of our own sacred feminine heart.
Well, thank you. Sacred Feminine Heart. That could be the title of this episode. Thank you so much, Natalia.
Oh, thank you. Blessed be. Such a joy.
Yes.
Thank you for the work that you're doing here, empowering so many people to find their voice and their confidence.
Yes, and that's what I show up to do, and invite guests like you who will guide others and give you somebody like you a platform that says, "Hey world, here's a way." Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today for this episode of Find Your Voice, Change Your Life. Each person Doreen interviews shares what has helped them find their voice. You can learn from these guests and find your voice so you can be confident to speak up and speak out. And remember to download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com. We hope you enjoyed the show and will return next time. Until then, goodbye for now.